can hear her really loud.
And I just hit go live, so I don't think I can undo it. I'll just when I'm not talking, I'll mute it. All right, I think
Okay.
we're there.
It's so loud. It's so loud.
Okay. All right, sorry. Sorry guys, we're hearing a little echo of Laura in the background because she is finishing up a call. My apologies, I didn't realize it would be so loud. Dani and I are both in rare form, probably not of the finest kind today, but we're here for you because we love you. Hi!
Hi.
How are you?
I am okay. How um I got a little annoyed today by the propaganda machine that's running here in Santa Fe, and I let it get to me. Um, you know what? Why don't we do a screen share? Is that okay? I'll just explain why I got pissed off,
That was amazing.
and you can tell me if I
I'm gonna grant you permission.
thank you for granting me
All right,
position. Thank you for granting me position.
let's hear that you could have like a daily Santa Fe drama podcast. So
For reals. For reals. So there's this, can you see this? Can you see it now? This 5050-matic. Can you see this? Hello? Are you there? Am I talking into the
yes,
void?
I'm muting so you don't hear the background noise, but yes, I can see it.
Okay. So this 5050-matic is this like new hip independent journalism outlet on Instagram that is funded by Omidyar, Gates, Sergey Brin, Ford Foundation, like all the it's amazing how they have rebranded independent journalism as like corporate sponsored, but independent because we wear pink socks or something. So this is their story. It has come to our attention that
Independent because pink socks is a good title.
oh, can you write that down? So basically, I mean, I can read it. It has come to our attention that McCall's Pumpkin Patch is publicly attacking our union. This is an Albuquerque teachers union. For informing our members that co-owner and Torrance County Commissioner Kevin McCall voted to extend the Torrance County Jail's ICE contract without debate. We are posting the message we sent to our members in full here to demonstrate that the message was based on credible news sources. So not only is the Albuquerque Teachers Association doxing this organization, jail, like whatever it is, to their members, this so-called independent journalism outlet is now posting it for the entire internet to see and claiming to be a journalistic outlet at the same time. And then, because I'm a masochist, I researched who funds this project. And I mean, it was so fucking infuriating, but this was just one screenshot of like several pages worth of funding, several pages. So it's this group, SURJ, like social, showing up for racial justice. Look how much money. $76,000, 75, 75, 25, 25, 18K. Chelsea Handler funds this. This Koi, Una Koi, whatever. It just makes me so mad.
That's Chelsea Handler?
What?
Una Coy is Chelsea Handler?
No, Una Koi is some like Merck. I think she's like part of the Merck family, and then she's like trying to wipe her conscience by funding social justice nonsense.
Right.
Anyway, it just like, I got pissed off first thing this morning because I looked into this and I don't, like, caring about society is the biggest curse. It just sucks.
I mean, you're like literally, oh, this is another good title, reporting live from the pumpkin patch. It's 5 p.m. on NBC News, right? Like, I mean, it is, think about what's happening here. You have a pumpkin patch attacking, right? Like the whole, or you have a union. I don't understand. Is the pumpkin patch attacking the union, or the union attacking the pumpkin patch?
So the union is attacking the pumpkin. I don't know. I can pull it up again.
It sounds like an episode of Charlie Brown.
It doesn't it?
Yeah.
So The Albuquerque Teachers Federation wants to point out that McCall's pumpkin patch mischaracterizes Kevin McCall's vote on the Torrance County Commission. What's weird about this whole thing being like so lame is that they're complying with federal law. Like, illegal immigration is called illegal immigration for a reason. It's illegal. This jail is compliant, and now they're being doxxed by the teachers union, doxxed by the so-called independent journalists, and it's a whole fucking clown show.
And the person who owns the pumpkin patch also works for the jail. Is that what it is?
I'm not clear. Okay, I'm going to read it aloud, and we're smart people, so maybe together we can parse it out.
Okay.
It has come to our attention that McCall's pumpkin patch is publicly attacking our union. So McCall's pumpkin patch is taking issue with the teachers union for doxing the Torrance County commissioner for voting to extend the Torrance County jail's contract with ICE.
What does it have to do with the pumpkin patch? I don't understand.
I don't know. I have no idea.
Okay.
But I'd like us to keep in mind, so they say at the bottom, our job as educators is to serve all students who attend our schools regardless of their immigration status. That's probably not true. This mission is in keeping with the New Mexico State Constitution. They didn't care about keeping with the New Mexico State Constitution during lockdown. But we're last in the country in education. Dead last. Number one in crime. Dead last in education. And this is what we're doing to fix our problems.
This is what independent journalists are for. I like this. Pumpkin patch politics is another good title, right?
Are you writing all these down?
Yeah, I didn't write the second one down, but I'll write this one down. I have the first and this one. I already forgot what the other one was. Pumpkin patch politics. Okay. Okay. Well, that just sounds, so it's just like your morning cup of tea. It's like the thing that happens while you're having your morning.
And then one more thing. And then they reported in all of our fake propaganda, like corporate billionaire NGO run news, that so the early voting started this week for our mayoral race. And this, of course, out-of-town white Jew, and I'm sorry to say it, but it's the out-of-town white Jews who are destroying New Mexico.
It says the out-of-town white Jew.
Correct. So the guy who is allegedly in the lead and is receiving money from the law firm that has all these like weird payouts from our mayor's campaign fund, his solution to our fake cultural divide that's all about what's happening on the historic plaza is to create a second plaza for the 4 dumb Hispanics and put it on the south side. He wants to split the city in half and give the rich whiteys who aren't even from here the historic plaza that Hispanics built, and then just give something crappy that I'm sure some California architecture firm will build for the unwashed.
Right. Something near Meow Wolf or something, right?
Or for like by the airport.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oy. Well.
How are you? That was a long answer. How are you, Emily?
I'm all right. I had an unexpectedly very long day in the cocktail kitchen today. So I haven't had one this long in a while. So I'm a little tired. Got it was a little bit ass busty, but I'm all right. I'm here. I'm soldiering through.
You're here.
Yay. We have to get a new car. Like our old car, like we've been trying to stretch it along for a while, but like the last time it was like, if anything else happens that costs more than $200, we're not spending the money, just because it becomes, you're putting good money after bad money. So we hit that point this week. So now we're trying to figure out.
What are you thinking of? What kind of cars?
I mean, we're gonna get some sort of like used SUV-ish type of thing. But yeah, I don't know. It's not my department. I
will just say 2 Subarus in, I cannot speak more. Plus you're lesbians and lesbians love Subarus. So it's really on brand.
You said that. Don't ever say that where Laura can hear it. My sister also has a Subaru. She's a fan, right? And but yeah, I think for what we're looking for, like the that probably the one we would want does not fall in the price range. But I also think Laura probably doesn't want a Subaru because of said lesbian
I
association.
know she's afraid of being a lesbian. It's okay. Box tastes great. But here's the thing. I have this great Subaru mechanic who lives just outside of Sedona, and he buys Subarus and then he fixes them up and fixes any problems they might have, and he sells them super reasonably.
All right, well, I'm not sure we're
You
gonna.
guys could put on a bumper sticker that says we're not lesbians.
She hasn't started watching the show yet. I'm in more trouble. Yeah. Anywho, all right. Well, um, so that's what's going on. You're all caught up, everybody now. This
Woo!
we live in an like so like for what's been like I can't imagine the shit show being like any shittier than it has been. But at this point, like feel and I felt this way for a long time, but I it's not saying I don't care is not even the right thing. It's like it's impossible to keep track of any of this, right? It's like I don't know why I feel responsible to try to keep track on some level of the shit show, but I just completely gave up this week. I
I
mean,
did too.
I completely gave up because like it's just so it's like a self-transforming machine elf, right? Like that there's no it's like playing whack-a-mole, right? You plug up one hole, another one pops open. Who you chatting with? Someone saying funnies in the side there?
Well, my cat's name is suggesting box tastes great for a show title.
All right, you can write down that one. Anywho, so yeah, I've just been like, I don't know, something like I was listening to music and then I was like feeling guilty because I was like, I should probably be listening to things for clips for the show. Right. And then so I tried doing that for a little bit. And then, right. And some of it was even like reasonably interesting, but like, I don't know, dude. Just, yeah. And then I'm back to listening to music.
I feel the same. And like I did watch a couple Glenn's, like whatever he was annoyed at was it like Dave Chappelle for his Gaza joke or I don't know. Anything I watched of Glenn's, I'm like, I don't get it. I don't get the gotcha here. Like I'm not seeing how this is newsworthy. And I can't with the Charlie Kirk. It's like the George Floyd to me. Like it's too fake.
It's
It's too
at
fake.
this point, like any semblance of any non-fakeness that I sensed before is completely out the window. I mean, this is just a clown show of the highest order. I mean, nothing against clowns. I like the circus, but
Do you like clowns? I thought I can't
not
stand
my favorite. It's
clowns.
not my favorite thing. I enjoy the circus, and I recognize that clowns are part of the circus. But yeah, no, I like the trapeze artists and the people who do tricks and stuff, right? Like I like the hard, as always, I like the people who do hard stuff, like
Right.
not the people who just like look silly. And that was always like a like an issue for me with Cirque du Soleil, right? Because
Which
they're
I've
like,
never seen.
oh, we should see Cirque du Soleil. It's amazing. But the same people who are doing the cool shit also have their faces painted oftentimes in like these like admittedly more artistically creepy ways than regular circus clowns do. But still, sometimes you look at them and you're like, oh, what is that? Like it feels like some sort of, entity or apparition or whatever. I do understand that part of it is just because of the distance that you are from it. Like they're trying to create, like from far away, they look more like normal faces. But then when you look at the face painting up close, you're like, oh my God, you look like the craziest looking mannequin thing I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Right. But there's no denying the skills and ability of those people. But we did watch like an interesting. I even did a show about this with Les last year or the year before. We did watch an interesting documentary about Cirque du Soleil and how it's pretty different behind the scenes. We watched two. We watched one that was like this isn't all it's cracked up to be behind the scenes, and then another about how they managed through COVID and started coming back and coming back online and whatever it is. It's interesting to see that. Of course, I know like a lot of people from the gymnastics community who've done that, right?
I've always wanted to see them. I just don't like Vegas.
Yeah, I mean they go on tour every year. Like you can usually go see them like at Santa Monica Pier or like they were here somewhere. I'm surprised they've never been to Santa Fe. That actually surprised me. That seems like the kind of place they'd be
So
into.
small. Most no big acts really come here. But I do want to say it was Van Jones. That was the joke that I was commenting. I knew it
I've
was,
seen that there's a lot of videos about Van Jones, but I don't know what the story is there. I haven't
but I
followed.
didn't like honestly, and I don't even like Van. I used to like Van Jones before I realized what a scam he is. And I even saw him driving around the back streets of my Beechwood neighborhood. I was like, that's so weird. That's Van Jones. Um, but I heard like all the hullabaloo, and I'm like, I don't think it was that bad.
I don't. I mean, I can see that there's a lot of videos about him, but I don't even have any idea what the
He
story.
said that the news cycle is like dead babies in Gaza, dead babies in Gaza, dead babies in Gaza. And I'm like, yeah,
It
it
is.
is.
Yeah.
That is correct.
Yeah. Okay. Is there a punchline to that?
I think he's getting a lot of heat for being insensitive. He was on Bill Maher. I mean,
Well, at this point, it's so fatiguing. Like the fact that nothing has happened, anything has failed to
right,
happen. Because of that, at a certain point, people just become complacent and used to it. It's like the same argument they used to make with like video games and violence, right? Like it desensitizes people or whatever it is. So
completely.
at this point, like it's like it's crazy to me the things that I'm comfortable like listening to while I'm trying to relax and that they don't bother my nervous system or make me on edge about what has
Right.
like I've just become completely numb to. I remember how when I very first like woke up, right? When I very first woke up, I remember like how hard it was for me to sleep at night and how I couldn't concentrate on what I was doing because I thought, like everything was the end of the world and whatever. And it's like now I'm like, it could be happening like right here next to me, and it's like, I'm gonna take a nap. You know what I
I
mean?
feel the same minus the stuff happening right here next to me. Um, a couple things. I want to acknowledge Mitch said, Dani, I want to let you know I also thought that was not Madonna last week. I have my reasons and I would have emailed you to explain it, but I was exhausted and gave up. So I welcome that. But you and I talked about it. And I think in the same way that the fake Trumps aren't doing this, Madonna's gestures are very unique and specific to her. And they've been a through line. It's not to say that someone couldn't learn her gestures,
Sure.
but that's why I thought it was her.
100%, right. So someone else reached out to left me a comment that they completely disagreed with me and whatever. It's totally fine. There's no requirement to agree here. Like it's just my instinct, which is not always right, but like I deeply know Madonna's movements just based on years and years and years of watching
Madonna mind control.
Madonna mind control, watching her, learning her dance moves,
Oh,
like wanting
Madonna
to be
mind
like her
control.
when I was little, all that kind of stuff, right? And for me, like it's whatever is going on there is like sad and disturbing in the same way that like some of our like I'm sure we all have friends in our life that have like changed so much it's like hardly recognizable, right? But I think it's Madonna, but I'm totally okay that other people don't think it's Madonna. So yeah.
One
Yes.
thing I'd like to bring up, I'm just writing my prosperity frequency on my beverage.
Wonderful.
And for anyone listening, 5207418, just drink that wealth in. Um, I don't think I mentioned last week that I interviewed, I think it was after our show that I interviewed Jason Christoff,
Yes.
who I did ask if he's an intelligent asset, and it kind of threw him off a little bit. But there were some questions that he wouldn't answer. And he's like, it's a really long story. And I'm like, we love long stories. Hit it. But he wouldn't budge. Do, 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 do. But he had a point which you and I have discussed before, but it just reminded me of like the entire establishment legacy media is portraying Israel as the obvious enemy.
Hmm.
And I defer to my ignorance. I don't know shit about that situation on any level. But why would I align my opinions based on these like known liars who are always lying? It just feels like it's so loud, it's so over the top, and it's painting it this one way. And it's like, wait, those are the people who told us this shit was safe and effective, and Trump's a racist, and do you know what I'm saying?
I
It
do.
just brought, I was like, that is a worthy.
I do. Like, I think, like, I, there was definitely, there was a long, big period of time, and occasionally, like, I still find myself having those thoughts of, like, well, if they're saying that, then I should probably think the opposite. But I actually, like, I think that I see the situations as more nuanced now. A, because I believe that, like, they wanted to lull us into thinking that on some level, right? That, like, it's not a very thoughtful thing to go, oh, if they think that, I don't think that, or I think, right,
No, that's just reactionary.
right.
For sure.
And so, in my mind, some of the things that have happened over the last few weeks, right, um, have, like, the writing is on the wall that, like, where the people in the country are is completely different than where the politicians or the professional managerial class are on things. And if you want to have any relevance going forward, then the old position isn't going to work anymore. And my guess would be that part of what we're seeing here is like an overcorrection, and so it looks cartoonish, right? But I don't. That still doesn't make me, like, I don't trust somebody who only does the. I don't even think this is a question of the right thing or the wrong thing, but someone who only shifts their opinions when there's no choices left for them, and basically, like, they're gonna lose their paycheck or their whatever it is. Like, that's completely different than having an arc of evolution or discovery on something, and holding a new position when it's not convenient based on your financiers or whatever it is, right? So I understand that it is weird how, like, all of a sudden, like, all of a sudden, people who've been being rejected for the last 2 years are now, like, being embraced as, as truth tellers, and whatever it is in the more slightly more mainstream media. It is weird. I'd be suspicious and whatnot. But I also think that, like, the landscape is just changing pretty rapidly, and it's sloppy.
It's all sloppy. Here's one thing I do know, that I don't have any idea what's going on over there, that
Right?
none of us do, and we're
Nope.
all being played.
Yes, I agree with that.
Everyone is being played. Did you see this week? And I didn't. You and I both dropped the ball on clipping this week, but so Tim Dillon put out an "I'm not suicidal." Do you hear that, Israel? Candace Owens put out an "I'm not suicidal." Did you hear that, Israel?
Theo
Russell
Vaughn.
Brand,
Theo
Theo
Vaughn.
Vaughn, right? So all at the same time,
Well, Russell Brand also put out a video this week saying that he was taking a break.
taking a break. He really has to think of things.
Right. And then I noticed he posted a video an hour later. Like,
Sure.
right?
But there's something coordinated going on with that.
Yes. Right. Right. I think the more, like, I think there's all sorts of shiftiness and selling out going on right now. And I think they would actually really like people to just take the simplistic perspective that everything is Israel's fault. Israel killed Charlie Kirk. Israel was, like, the cause of all the problems. Da, 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 da. Because that's clown show, and that doesn't actually hold responsible the people that are creating the problems. It just creates, like, this ridiculous, like, overinflated, like, a bit straw man, right? And I don't think that would have been choice number one for how they wanted to handle it, but based on how things are going, rather than have people be very specific and distinct about who's causing the problems, who's doing the things that are underhanded or not appropriate to be doing in a supposedly constitutional republic or whatever the shit is, right? It's just easier if you have everyone, like, it's Israel, it's Israel, it's Israel, and having people come out and say, they're not saying, you hear that, Larry Ellison, or you hear that, Bill Ackman, or you hear that, George, whoever, so it could be some other corporation or individual or faction. They're all just saying Israel, like it's like this giant monolith.
Right. It's like Israel's the new they.
It's right. Correct. It's the they.
Yeah.
It's
But
yeah.
one thing that Jason suggested, and I want to be clear for the chat, like, I have no idea if he's the real deal or not. I'll put the video out probably in like 6 weeks, but he was evasive. I'm not sure what to think. But one thing that he put out that I was like, okay, I didn't think of that about that, is that if a third party took out their frequency fence or their surveillance fence, or Mitch, like, you'll know better what it's called. But like the fact that everyone's like, there's no way that this army, that this military didn't see this coming. And what Jason purported was, what if there's a third entity that dismantled their capabilities to make it seem like a false flag? Again, I defer to, I have no idea.
Well, I mean, I think we both understand the concept, even if we disagree in part or in its entirety with the concept that David Martin was laying down in his book, first called Apostles of Power and then changed to Coup de 12, about basically, factions or groups of people, sort of corporate in nature or sometimes independently acting in nature, maybe interacting with certain people who represent governments, but certainly aren't the government themselves, doing things to make it appear that it's a state or faction that's more like what we think of as like a terrorist organization that are doing things. So 100%. I mean, it's obviously, they even say like October 7th is like 9/11, Charlie Kirk is like 9/11. I'm 100% certain that we're in that space where it's way too simple to say the government did it. It's way too simple to say the other government did it, right? It's too simple to say the trannies did it, or the left did it, or the whatever, the Groiper did it, or whatever. And it's this very sort of probably a groups of people that have some common interests, but others not common. So people wouldn't think to put them together, who decide to manufacture a set of situations temporarily in order to benefit themselves, even if they're going to disagree about something 2 hours later or 4 hours later or whatever it is. And that's just way more difficult for people to understand the nuances of, and so my guess would be that, probably it was about 5 years, 4 or 5 years before any more nuanced takes on like 9/11 started coming out or whatever it is. My guess would be that like, a little bit further down the road here, that there's going to be some other threads that emerge, and some of them will probably be created as distractions, and some of them will probably have some legitimacy and some parts that are not legitimate. And as it seems, I don't know that we all get to have a collective understanding of truth together about anything anymore. Everyone has to figure out what something is for them, to them, right? Like the truth is just an individual path at this point, right? But we can have...
Well, it's not, but that's how it's being, the spin is trying to make it so that it is.
Well, because we can't agree upon anything. If you want to have any sort of truthful understanding of anything, you're going to have to go it alone. I'm going to have to go it alone. We might be able to talk about it, but there's not going to be this like collective ascension to this higher understanding of what's going on.
Correct. And I think we would be wise to not normalize the mind controlling of half of our fellow humans and like make it seem like that's just how it is. Like, yes, we are moving out of this like horrible place that we're in. But I hope that we can return to some semblance of truth. Now, you and I didn't dive into Ford Foundation on our Monday show. P.S. We have a new show coming out. Do you want to do our commercial?
Yes. Tomorrow, if you go to wordspodcast.locals.com and use the promo code Welcome to Words, you will find Patchwork of Amuse Bouche is. We'll be there tomorrow for your enjoyment. So those of you who have not joined us yet, please do. We'd love to support.
So we ended up not going into Ford Foundation, which I think we will get into at some point because it is clearly the CIA. But looking at how Henry Ford was not just, like, he didn't just make military vehicles for the Third Reich. He was a publisher of virulently anti-Semitic articles, books. He himself published copies of the Elders of Zion, whatever, to pass out. And the Ford... So I think it was Ford Motor Company in that article that you and I read was filled with spies. And then when they started the Ford Foundation, I think the first president was also the head of the OSS, and they were hiring spies to work there. But here's what I'm saying is they put a lot of money into fomenting hatred of Jews. And it is certainly, if it's not the intention of this current Israel Hamas op, it's a delightful side effect for the predator class that it does seem to be cultivating more Jew hatred. And we do see that as a through line throughout history. And this is very successful to that end.
So it's interesting that you say that. One of the things I was listening to while I was at work today was I got about 2/3 the way through, probably about a 3.5 hour conversation between Dave Smith and Nick Fuentes. And it was actually a very interesting, intellectual, nuanced conversation that they were having. It was much different than hearing either of them interviewed by anyone else or whatever it is. It was interesting to hear them talk. They actually let each other finish their thoughts and made concessions and whatever. It was very interesting. But they were saying basically the same thing. Right. They were big, like Nick Fuentes even said, like, what is going on right now, like, is not good for Jewish people. Like, it's terrible for them. Right. And so if someone who's, largely viewed as like some sort of modern day, Nazi kid or something, which I think is probably not right, can clearly see that and says, and that's a problem. Like, that is not good for us. Like, that's just not good in general. Then I think that writing is obviously, pretty much on the wall. But I think that the ruling class, I don't even know what to call the they anymore. The ruling class, the predators, the fucktards, right. And it's like a shifting idea always of like who that even is. Like, I actually think it's like a very, 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 very small amount of people, but it touches this other layer. And because that other layer is touched by it, we assume that they have like, that they're as read in on all the shit as this smaller group, but all they care about is divisiveness. All they care about is that when we dislike someone who doesn't think the same thing that we think. That's the most like that they place the highest premium on creating as much of whatever that thing is as possible, more than anything else. I don't even think they care so much what we think. It's what we think about and how we think about it, as opposed to specifically what we think.
So you very well might be right. I think that you're right. But just playing devil's advocate as an intellectual exercise, and we've talked about this a million times, there's the whole Khazaria switcheroo. And how many billions of dollars have we sent to Ukraine, aka Khazaria,
right,
the past few years? There's the whole Sabbatean Jew switcheroo.
Right.
So there might, I don't know, but there might be something specific about Jews as far as being a targeted group to get people to hate, to divide over. I don't know. It's just a maybe, but also Masonic Zionism and like why they used the Jews, the Balfours who were not Jewish, and the rest of the Masons to start Israel. I feel like Jews are a useful tool for their larger shenanigans, whether they really care about Jews or hate Jews more than anyone else or not. Jews are certainly serving as a great scapegoat for them.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think, I think the other thing we get confused about here is I think maybe we'd get farther if we don't think of Israel, Gaza, and the Ukraine thing as separate conflicts. And we look at them as different parts of the same conflict, right? Because of that connection that you're talking about.
Yeah.
And then when you start to because you have some people who are like super Ukraine zealots and some people who are super Israel zealots. And then there's this other class of people who are like super into like both of them with all right. And so I don't know. I definitely think that, I mean, you even have this within, right? Like people like to call, George Soros is a Jewish billionaire, but George Soros is also a Jewish billionaire who sold out the Jews, during the Holocaust.
Gladly, and said those were the best years of his life.
Right. So like that, so there's that kind of thing that we're dealing with as well. And you have to imagine that exists within he's not the only one, right? So, yeah, I don't know. I think so. I definitely can see what you're saying, and that maybe there is a premium put on specifically making sure that there's always a level of tension around this specific group of people. I also just think that like having everybody at each other's throats all the time, just in general, creates the background noise that is most beneficial for whatever their bullshit is.
For sure. For sure. I also want to mention, P.S. It's 4:44. If everyone would like to make a wish.
Hmm. Danny, the numerologist today.
I did see the new Paul Thomas Anderson movie. I'm curious to know if people in the chat have seen it. What a raging disappointment propaganda fest. It was like every single standard issue, 21st century woke trope shoved into like a ginormous piece of
What's the name of the movie?
Who Cares by Paul Thomas Anderson. I
Okay.
don't even know.
I didn't even know there was a new. I mean, I don't watch movies very much, so I didn't know that there was a new until you told me the other day when we were chatting. So,
Sean Penn was in it, and he's always next level.
right.
And even though I don't like his politics,
He's so ridiculous, dude.
he's ridiculous, but he was outstanding. He
Great
was
actor.
incredible.
Yeah.
And even what's his face? Leonardo DiCaprio? Exceptional. Because there was so little going on in the movie aside from the dissemination of these standard issue hate divide tropes. It was easier to focus on the acting because there wasn't a lot of like character development. There were no subplots. There was no romance. Like it was very singular, one note. Like they shouldn't let the CIA write scripts. They should let the CIA consult on scripts, but let the actual auteurs like use their talents to make them better than the drivel that they're shoving out now. It was really disappointing, and I wonder how directors like Paul
And
Thomas
both of those
Anderson
actors
it.
have been accused at different times of being CIA assets. So maybe they were particularly good at acting that terrible script because that's the role they actually play.
For sure, for sure. But it was like because there was nothing there and I was just getting angrier and angrier and angrier, I was able to focus on like, yeah, these are really good actors.
All right, so I do have a couple of clips. Should we move to those and then we can go to your Instagram scroll roll?
Yes.
After that? All right,
Yes.
so I have here Glenn reacting to Pam Bondi's pathetic Senate hearing, and some of it is just funny. So we'll play it. It's not very long. Maybe we'll even play the whole thing. But also some of the points he's making, like we have reached a new level of dumb. The fact that like I haven't listened to anyone else talk about it, so I don't know if anyone else is pointing this out. And if other people aren't pointing this out, particularly not people who like think everything Trump does and everything the Trump administration does is perfect, that you guys have a problem. I don't know. Here we go.
Fair use.
Attorney General Pam Bondi appeared today before the Senate Judiciary Committee, and the reason she did so is not because she was being.
I really like the combo of the shade of his shirt,
Yep.
his background. It's really well art directed today.
Excellent.
Generous with her time. It's because it's a requirement of her job. Namely, the Senate Judiciary Committee is there to exert oversight on behalf of the American people of the parts of the executive branch under its purview, and that begins for the Senate Judiciary Committee, not just with judges, but also with the Justice Department, which is intended to be the chief law enforcement agency in our country, overseeing things like the FBI. So Pam Bondi went there out of obligation, not out of kindness. And the reason attorneys general go to the Senate is because that is the mechanism by which we, the American people, and I realize this is theoretical and a little bit idealistic, but it's nonetheless true. It's the mechanism by which we demand answers from critical executive branch officials to the questions that we have.
Is Glenn's speech impediment a result of like the architecture of his vocal cords and his tongue? Is it something that he would be able to do speech therapy to overcome?
Maybe you should reach out to him about that, since you're going through your own sort of vocal coaching right now, right?
That's why I'm asking. Like, maybe is it something he could smooth out? I mean, maybe he loves it. I'm just curious.
I don't know.
Okay.
the information that we are entitled to.
I mean, it does
Such
look
as-
like he maybe had a little underbite or didn't have braces or something, right? So it's possible it could be structural.
Can you try to talk like that?
I can't. Yeah, I've always marveled there. Yeah, there's a few people on YouTube that I always marveled at how they actually make that sound like that, and he's one of them. But yes,
Yeah.
okay.
Is why did you say multiple times that there's a client list for Jeffrey Epstein that the government is refusing to disclose? And then earlier this year say that it was sitting on your desk for review and you would release it, and now say there is no such thing as the Epstein client list and we'll never see that? What is in the Epstein files that you refuse to release? Does any of it involve well-known politicians, including Donald Trump? She just refused to answer any of this, what the legal authority is for Trump's new policy of bombing boats out of existence off the coast of Venezuela with no evidence, no process of any kind. Questions about whether he could do that to American citizens, either off the coast of Venezuela or on American territory. Questions that were often asked and needed to be answered, often weren't. When Obama claimed a very similar power, not justifying it through drug trafficking, but through terrorism, she just basically refused to answer anything. But because what she did in lieu of answering the questions and giving not the Democratic senators or senators in general the information that they were asking, who cares if they get information? The point of the hearing is to give us information, American citizens information. In lieu of providing that, she instead just had prepared a whole bunch of talking points for every Democratic senator of whatever scandals they have had in their past, for whatever they did that she thinks was worthy of condemnation. And they were entirely unrelated to the question. So she would be asked, have you ever seen any documents in the Epstein files showing X, Y, and Z? And she would say, I'd like to remind you that so-and-so, Reed Epstein, who knew Jeffrey Epstein well, donated money to your political campaign, and just refused to answer the questions. And a lot of conservatives, not all by any means, but a lot, thought this was really great. Like, yeah, we love seeing her defiant and hurling accusations at these Democratic senators. And before I get into the specifics and show you some of these exchanges and the reasons why I think no matter how much you love Trump or hate Democratic senators, you ought to find this very disturbing, and Pam Bondi in general, her ineptitude, disturbing. I just want to point out that, and I promise you this is true, and I have years of evidence to demonstrate it, that nobody, I stand second to nobody in my contempt for like the Senate, just the Senate as an institution, and for senators, most of them, and the senators, the Democratic senators on this committee, people like Sheldon Whitehouse and Richard Blumenthal and Cory Booker and Dick Durbin. I promise you, I should go without saying that nothing I'm saying here is in defense of those people or out of a belief that they deserve respect or deference of any kind. I'm not offended in any way that she mistreated them or treated them without deference or respect. I couldn't care less about that. I would treat them the same way. They're windbags. They're so pompous. There's really nothing more sanctimonious and filled with blowhards than the U.S. Senate. It's really like an out-of-touch, detached country club for rich people who are really enamored of themselves. I mean, there's no more self-love, no greater self-love that you will find anywhere than in the United States Senate. They just really regard this as like a revered institution. And so that isn't my concern at all. The reason she's going there isn't to show respect for Democratic senators. It's to show respect for Americans. This is how we understand what our government is doing. This is how we ask questions of people like the Attorney General through our elected officials that we vote for and put in the Senate and put in Congress. And that's why you ought to take it seriously. It's actually an important venue to extract information. And not only did Pam Bondi go there with the full intention of disclosing nothing, of making very clear she would respond to nothing, she would provide no information, and she would be proud of it, as she kind of like adopted these sort of very angry girl boss gestures, really like a theater. You know, she would like shake her head a little bit as she like chastised them and then drink from her water, hoping to create gifts. It was pathetic. But if it were clever, if it were executed well, if there were like a real strategy behind it, I would still be irritated as a journalist. I wasn't getting the transparency I think we should have, but I could at least respect it. The problem with Pam Bondi is, and I don't say this lightly, I know it sounds rude to say it, but sometimes when it comes to very powerful people, you have to be clear about who they really are and what their failings are. Pam Bondi is genuinely dumb. I didn't have that opinion.
This whole video is pretty good. He points out that I knew you were going to love that part. So Continuing.
When she was chosen as Trump's attorney general, I knew of her. I didn't know much about her. I was open-minded. But after seeing her over 9 months in countless interviews, testimony, speeches, extemporaneous remarks, she doesn't know what she's talking about. This job is so much bigger than she is so beyond the ken of her understanding and knowledge that it's hard to describe. I don't think that about people with whom I disagree easily. There are a lot of people with whom I disagree who I think are very smart. She isn't. And I'll just give you one example before we get into the hearings of today. In September 15th, a few days after Charlie Kirk's assassination, Pam Bondi went on the podcast of Katie Miller, who is the wife of Stephen Miller. So even here, White House officials go on the podcast of the spouses of other White House officials, or in this case, Trump administration officials, go on the podcast of the wives of Trump White House officials. This kind of incestuous behavior is something, just as a journalist, I dislike. Obviously, she's not going to be asked any pressing questions, any hard questions, and she wasn't. Nonetheless, she uttered a statement that created a huge amount of backlash among conservatives, rightfully so. And everybody is prone to misspeak. Everybody might have a bad moment where they just say something in a poorly expressed manner. We have all had that, where we have to go back and clarify what we think. But what she said here is such an egregious and obvious violation of just basic constitutional doctrine of free speech in the First Amendment that nobody who ever went to law school, let alone practice as a lawyer, let alone somebody who is elevated to attorney general, it shouldn't even be able to pass their mind and through their lips. And yet, because of her just lack of grasp of basic governmental and constitutional dogma, I'm talking about complex and esoteric issues, I'm talking about basic minimal knowledge. This is what she said.
There's free speech and then there's hate speech. And there is no place, especially now, especially after what happened to Charlie in our society.
Do you see the Templar cross behind her? I hadn't noticed that before.
I know we played that part of the clip before. I didn't want to, we didn't need to necessarily play that part, but I didn't know where to go for the rest of it, so I was just going to play through it. But
No problem. Did you see the cross?
There's hate speech.
yes, I see it right there.
That's crazy.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay.
And there is no place, especially now, especially after what happened to Charlie in our society.
Do you see more law enforcement going after these groups who are using hate speech and putting cuffs on people so we show them that some action is better than no action?
We will absolutely target you, go after you if you are targeting anyone with hate speech, anything. And that's across the aisle.
I mean, that is one of the most pathetic things I've ever heard. And it wasn't just an off the
I like that. Malicious ineptitude.
I'm writing it down.
cuff comment.
Yeah.
I mean, she gave two separate answers.
Thank you, Glenn.
The first of which said, here you have free speech and here you have hate speech, as though hate speech is not part of free speech. This is the understanding of like the dumbest liberal who wants to justify a censorship regime. Like, we're not censoring free speech. This is hate speech. This is inclined to incite animosity toward marginalized, you know the whole moronic framework. It
I
was
like that
remarkable.
too. Moronic framework. That's a good one too.
I already had a low opinion of her competence before that interview. That really shocked me. And then Katie Miller actually endorsed it as well and said, went so far as to say, okay, you just said that hate speech is separate from free speech, despite how many decades the Supreme Court has ruled that there's no such thing as illegal hate speech. Charlie Kirk himself kept emphasizing there's no such thing as hate speech in the United States, it's just all free speech. And Katie Miller, the wife of Stephen Miller, who is also a podcast host who can get top Trump officials on her show, also said, asked her then, like, yeah, you know, we're sick of hate speech. Are you going to put handcuffs on people, on Americans who express hate speech? And instead of Pam Bondi saying, oh, you know what, actually, I might have expressed myself wrong. It's totally constitutional to express what I regard as speech that's hateful. The government doesn't differentiate. She said, she doubled down. She said, yes, we're going to go after you if you are an American spouting hate speech. And as I said, this provoked immense amounts of, to their credit, anger on the part of conservatives as well. But it really, to me, illustrated just how poor of a grasp she has on what her job is.
All right, now wait, she's going to get even dumber. It's fantastic where this goes.
There's this business school concept called the Peter Principle, which is that everybody keeps getting promoted and they rise up until the level of their incompetence. So you do your job, you get promoted, you do your job well, you get promoted. You keep getting promoted until you finally arrive at the point where you're incompetent to do that job. The job is beyond your kind of knowledge and skills. Pam Bondi is the perfect illustration of that. I realize she's a very loyal Trump supporter, very loyal to Donald Trump. She kind of has the ethos of, she looks like she could be a Fox News newsreader. So I get the aesthetic of her. She speaks in this like pseudo-aggressive tone. I get all that. But there's no substance there. She's extremely unimpressive.
She's fake
and if you're somebody
Kaylee.
who has aspirations for the Trump Justice Department to do things that we may not even agree that they should do, but if you're somebody who does, she's not going to be capable of doing it. She's a mess. And that was very apparent when she showed up today at the Senate Judiciary Committee. They had a lot of questions, and I think not just Senate Democrats, but a lot of conservatives also have questions about, including what happened with her mishandling of the Epstein files and the various conflicting statements she made about it. So as a reminder, here's what she said on February 21st on Fox News.
Jay may be releasing the list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients? Will that really happen?
It's sitting on my desk right now to review. That's been a directive by President Trump. I'm reviewing that. I'm reviewing JFK files, MLK files. That's all in the process of being reviewed because that was done at the directive of the president from all of these agencies.
So have you seen anything that you said, oh my gosh?
Not yet.
Okay. Well, we'll check back with you.
So she said, yeah, the Epstein list is on my desk. Now, maybe there are explanations for what she meant to say. Maybe she misspoke, which would go into the Ineptitude column again. I mean, how do you say the Epstein list, which she knows is something everyone is interested in, is sitting on her desk for review to be released if there is no such thing as the Epstein list? At the very least, if not dishonest, it's utterly inept as well. So naturally, there were journalists who have been reporting on things that have been going on here in terms of the handling of the Epstein file, including a Wall Street Journal article from July, the headline of which is, the DOJ told Trump in May that his name is among many in the Epstein files. That's what they reported, that the Attorney General told Donald Trump in May that his name is among many in the Epstein files, which isn't necessarily even incriminating about Trump. He knows Jeffrey Epstein well. He spent a lot of time with him prior to that first conviction. He had terminated his friendship with him before that, but it's normal that Jeffrey Epstein would be talking a lot about Trump. But he is in the Epstein files. Remember, Elon Musk said Donald Trump is in the Epstein files. And then the article reported this, quote, among many in the Epstein files, Pam Bondi told the president at the meeting that Justice decided not to release more Jeffrey Epstein documents because of the presence of child pornography and the need to protect victims. Which never made any sense. You could just not release the child pornography. You could just redact the name of the victims. But of course, it's a completely legitimate question, not for Democratic senators, but for you to want to know, like, did Pam Bondi tell Donald Trump that his name appeared repeatedly in the Epstein files and that she even flagged those documents, as the Wall Street Journal reported? And so Dick Durbin, again, zero concern, respect, support for Dick Durbin, zero, literally zero. But the question he asked is one of the questions he should ask, that you should want an answer to, and here's how she responded.
Quarrel with you is to read somebody that you mentioned I never heard of.
Reid Hoffman.
So who gave the order to flag records related to President Trump?
Now, again, she's constantly saying, oh, you're so concerned with the Epstein files. You have a donor, Reid Hoffman, who's a liberal billionaire who was friends with Jeffrey Epstein. He gave you money. And he's saying, like, I don't even know Reid Epstein. Maybe he's lying. Maybe he's not. Probably he's lying. Dick Durbin wasn't interested in the release of the Epstein files during the Biden administration, wasn't criticizing the Biden administration for concealing them. All fair points, but totally irrelevant to what she should be answering. And that's what she did all day, like these irrelevant, maybe valid criticism, but she's not there to criticize Democratic senators. She's there to give information to the American people.
You is to read somebody that you mentioned I never heard of.
Reid Hoffman.
So who gave the order to flag records related to President Trump?
To flag records for President Trump?
To flag any records which included his name.
I'm not going to discuss anything about that with you, Senator.
Eventually, you're going to have to answer for your conduct in this. And you won't do it today, but eventually you will. I yield, Mr. Chairman.
First of all, are you somebody who thinks that the public should have the right to know that, whether or not the Attorney General went through and flagged all the pages in the Epstein files that mentioned Donald Trump, her boss, especially given that we haven't seen these documents and the Trump administration has decided to conceal them? I'm not saying there's anything incriminating there that's proof of his wrongdoing. I'm not saying we don't know because we haven't seen them because they won't show it to us. And she has no basis for refusing to answer that question. There's no privilege that applies. And this is another point I just want to make, because although it seems very legalistic and even a little idealistic, it's still extremely true and very important. Pam Bondi, her understanding of her role as Attorney General is that she's Donald Trump's lawyer. And often during the hearing today, when she was asked questions about things she discussed with Donald Trump, or even things like this, did you flag his name? And she would say, I'm not going to answer. Often she would explicitly say, you understand that my role as a lawyer is I can't disclose legal advice that I gave to Donald Trump, as though that's her client. The Attorney General is not the lawyer for the president. This is not a controversial issue. Donald Trump is not Pam Bondi's client. Again, I know this formulation sounds idealistic, but it's still it's the truth. Pam Bondi has one client as Attorney General. That client is the American people. It's not the president. And that's why the Justice Department is expected to act independently, because she's not working at Donald Trump's behest as a lawyer. Yes, she works for him, and that is a blurry line, but she's not his lawyer. Donald Trump has lawyers. The people who give him legal advice, the people who are there to defend his interests, they're people who work in what's called the White House counsel's office. The president picks a White House counsel. He creates a little mini law firm inside the White House. Those are his lawyers. And there is an attorney-client privilege that applies for things those lawyers talk about with Donald Trump. Pam Bondi doesn't understand this. She really doesn't. She thinks she's Donald Trump's lawyer and he's her client. And that was part of the basis for her refusing to answer even the most basic questions. And yet, she just refused to. And it's not disrespectful to the Democratic senators. It's disrespectful to you.
Okay. So I thought that was kind of right. Like, I mean, I didn't catch this hearing, right? But this idea, and it's not hard for me to believe, that she's confused about what her job is.
I thought that was a really good point, and he made it very clearly.
Right, that, and then like her earlier in the video, before the first set of things he said, when we stopped it a couple times, so it may have been missed, he talked about how when they would ask her a question, instead of answering the question, she would just accuse them of the same behavior that they're asking her about in regards to her thing, right? Like, you know, did you flag the files for Donald Trump and Epstein case? One of your donors is in the Epstein files, right?
Correct.
This is crazy.
Like, she showed up with all these files on everyone who was questioning her.
Right.
Because I heard about this last night.
Okay, got it. Okay.
Yeah. And I was already annoyed because I'm like, no, even though it might be satisfying to hear her go after the people, I agree with Glenn. That's not why she was there.
Right.
And she's evading really important questions. It's not the time or place to go after these people. It's like a lot of people in the Trump administration have this singular strategy of this like aggressive, cunty attack. But there's no awareness of when it's appropriate or not.
Also, there seems to be this belief, not just amongst the people in his administration, though it's certainly there, but also amongst a lot of his supporters and fans, that the purposes of his role there is to get back at the people who wronged him, rather than get back at the people who wronged the public.
America.
Right, right, and this the pride with which she sat there and performed the role that she thinks she's supposed to be playing, it just like makes it's
embarrassing.
A bad look.
Super embarrassing. It reminds me of because Kaylee, when she was doing that for Trump 45, she was good at it. I never was a fan of the cuntiness because I wish there was more like dignity and self-respect. in the entire government, but we're certainly not going to get that from Trump, but at least from the press secretary to be the interface between. Then the redhead was trying to take on the Kaylee strategy under Biden, and it didn't work because she couldn't really pull it off. We just keep seeing these different
You're talking about
iterations.
the Jen Circleback Psaki?
Yes. Keitelback.
There's been other attorneys general that I find deplorable and despicable for a variety of reasons. But when they were being confronted clearly with questions that they either did not want to answer or did not have an answer for or whatever, you watched them search their intellect for an answer that would evade the thing that they wanted to evade, but also respect the role that they're supposed to be playing.
Correct.
And this was just like, she thinks she did it right. Like, when she walked out of there, she was like, nailed it.
I was concerned when she was first appointed because she's so young.
I mean, you and I both have known people that can be incredibly sharp and smart and discerning and whatever. She just seems dumb to me.
But I think that role is really important. And even if you're sharp as a tack, I think to be the press secretary, especially given how divided our country is.
She's not the press secretary. She's the attorney general.
Or the attorney general, whatever. Right. They're kind of interchangeable to me. They look very similar. They
definitely look alike, but one's a lawyer and one's just a spokesperson.
Right.
Yeah.
But I think they need more experience. More life experience for these roles that they're playing.
Sure, but we can't. It would not be beyond Donald Trump to appoint people that it's easy for him to manipulate. For people Correct. Who are not going to point out the inconsistencies in what he's asking for, or challenge him on anything, or if what he wants them to do is actually not the right thing to do, not do it, and So, this was just embarrassing, and I don't know, anybody who can still defend any of this. It's really embarrassing. I don't understand.
I got into this with a friend last night who loved what Pam Bondi did, and he was all for it. And I was saying, this is ridiculous. She sucks at her job. She's not representing the American people. She's not even enforcing justice. And he's like, well, is it Brennan who she's going after?
No, this is the TMZ-ification of the
government. But the point that I'm making is, who was it that they just brought charges against in the past week or two? Comey. So he was like, what about Comey? I'm like, she has been in office since what? January, February, and all they can give us is Comey. What about Fauci? What about Gates? What about Tedros? Right. What about the stolen election? What about XYZ? So we were going at it last night.
But also, and this is the other thing, is the way the decisions are being made seem to be about who wronged Donald Trump most rather than who harmed the people of this country the most.
Correct. I mean, I feel like the most salient thing that Glenn said, and I thought that whole segment was really well done, is that she doesn't work for Donald Trump and she's too dumb to know that.
Too dumb to know that, right? She's like, I landed the big gig. I'm Donald Trump's lawyer.
No one in this administration is working for the American people, is pretending to work for the American people, is even considering the American people.
Yeah. Yep. Correct. All right. Thank you to Dead Star Cave Girl who gave us a super chat. Thank you, Dead Star Cave Girl.
Thank you, Dead Star Cave Girl.
Okay, let's go to because I talked about the Ian Carroll thing a little bit. Do you want me to play the clip? Or
yes.
Okay. So for those of you, when you go watch the podcast tomorrow, we won't talk about it as much today because we talked about it yesterday. So you guys can go watch Patchwork of a Moose Boosh tomorrow for our thoughts on it. But I did find the clip. In all of the crazy, just the unending possibilities of the conspiracy about what happened to Charlie Kirk, the other day, Ian Carroll raised a good point that I haven't heard anyone else raise, that somehow always gets lost in all of this shit. And I'm going to play that for you now. So, right. I was shocked. I was just dozing off and suddenly I was snapped right up and I was like, oh, fair point. I was listening to him to fall asleep, right? So, all right, here we go. Fair use.
week. Maybe tomorrow. It might be in a couple days. The other thing that I've started to look into that's going to tie into all of those reports is I have a lot of questions about.
What's with the lighting? Is he not a professional podcaster sponsored by Big Shots? Why can I not see him?
Fair question.
Okay.
About Turning Point USA. Questions about how Turning Point USA came to be. Because if you're not aware, Turning Point USA is a nonprofit, a 501c3. And if you know anything about churches, you would know that 501c3s are not legally allowed to engage in political speech or action at all. You actually lose your 501c3 status if you fund a candidate or support a candidate or endorse a candidate or any of that.
I cannot stand him. He is so proud of himself for this little thought that he has come up with. Like, I can't even with the amount of self-satisfaction on his darkened face.
Well, which makes me believe that he's not actually the one who came up with it.
No, of course
right?
not.
Or if he did come up with it, then he's stayed up all night in order to come up with it, right? Like he had the right kind of thing. I'm not impressed with Ian Carroll. It just struck me as like, oh, I have not heard anyone else talk about this, and that was why I was bringing it. Here we go.
Technically. So, how the fuck is Turning Point USA a 501c3 nonprofit that's not allowed to engage in political action when the entire thesis of Turning Point USA is political action, right?
No, because they set up a 501c4.
When you look into answering that question, you discover that Turning Point USA is not a singular foundation. It's not just a 501c3 nonprofit. It's actually a whole towering network of complex, interwoven funds and foundations and nonprofits and LLCs and all sorts of different stuff that basically works like a money laundering scheme to shuffle money. And it's not, I'm not saying that it's necessarily illegal. I'm just saying that it works in similar ways where you can shuffle the money around between the different shell pieces of this organization so that this piece is doing political action, but not the 501c3. They would never endorse a candidate. They would just transfer all the money over to this piece of the organization that would then host a fundraiser for Carrie Lake or endorse, Donald Trump or JD Vance or do some fundraiser political thing there, whatever. And there's all these complex networks that is like basically an extremely professional tax avoidance structure, right?
Stop. I hate him so much. I cannot even. This is exactly like bringing that idiot on to Glenn Greenwald to say that all the dark money funds are right wing. That is what's going on right now. So yes, that is what's going on in most of the world and probably who's paying Ian Carroll's paycheck. But I just pulled up Turning Point USA's funders. There are no known dark. I don't see Amalgamated Fund, New Ventures Fund, Tides Foundation, Solidaire. Those are the dark money funds. These are on the level. Wayne Duddleston Foundation, Jack Roth Foundation, Marcus Foundation, Decent Foundation. I'm not seeing what he's. Notice the through line that we've seen in the past month. These supposed alt media personalities are trying to make it seem like dark money is funding the right wing when dark money is destroying the world through the left wing.
So I think you're seeing everything through this particular lens of the stuff that you're steeped in right now, and
correct.
I'm not denying that point that you're making. I don't think that's the point that he's making. I think what he's and this is my point. I don't think Ian Pericle. I don't think Ian. What?
I do think that's the point he's making, but I like Ian Pericle for his new name.
Ian Pericle. No, I don't. I think for him, the point is like the way all this stuff is structured, right? Like I think that he knows that like Bill Ackman and the Robert Shillman and that people are using their own names in donating, and so it's not dark money like creating all these false things to donate money sort of through. I think his point is more in the way that the company is structured. And it is interesting that since all we've been talking about for let's see, we're at October 8th here, so like at least 28 or 29 days, right? Is the this entire Charlie Kirk situation. I don't mean you and I, but just the internet sphere in general, right? You don't hear anybody having any conversations about how questionable these organizations were, right? And so to me, it felt like it's interesting, like that is something that, like, why aren't people more disturbed by the fact, like, what exactly, we've heard people over the course of the last month say Turning Point USA has more power than the Republican, the RNC. We've heard that said all the time on different news.
You have?
I have. I've heard that said like a ton.
Do you believe that?
It doesn't, whether I believe it, no, I don't know. I mean, I don't know, right? But the idea, like, people should be asking, well, why? How? Like, what does that exactly look like in there, right? And this is one of those things that oftentimes through the more like lascivious, seductive, right? Like, did he really die? What's the angle of the ballistics? To this, to that. Nobody ever talks about, like, well, what the fuck actually was this? Right? And so
I think it's a big bunch of nothing. And again, I don't want to reiterate what we talked
then
about.
why did we even play? Like, we already talked about it. So then why did you have me play it?
You want to throw down, bitch? Because I will cut you.
Okay. Well, I mean, we talked about it yesterday. I don't think he's talking about the kind of dark money that you think that you're talking about.
I think he's trying to make it seem like Turning Point USA is some shady dealing and try to bring some big controversy around it, when, as we went over in our show, this is how Planned Parenthood is run. This is how plenty of so-called charities are run. It's not, he's trying to make it like
correct.
Turning Point USA is some singular exception.
Correct. Yes, I agree with you about that. It's not a singular exception, but people should have questions in their mind about all of this in general, don't you think? Like, what?
I have more questions about Ian Carroll than Turning Point USA. That's my thing, is I'm taking nothing out of his darkened, shadowy face seriously because he's a liar.
This isn't about taking anything out of his, like, that isn't my point with this, right? My point with this whole thing is that we're so far away from anything that actually makes any sense that, like, reasonable questions we should have about the organizations that seem to have power in our reality get completely wiped over while there's all of this other crazy circus going around. That's my point, right?
I think that's a good point. I just don't think it's a good point when it comes out of his face hole. And the fact that he's directing it towards Turning Point USA when there's a whole slew of this stuff that has been going on in much more powerful organizations that are actually slush funds for Democrat donors, to me feels off topic.
So I think where he's going with this, I think, and I'm not going to play any more of it, but I think where he's trying to go with this, and I don't know if he'd be able to get there, and if he could make that case, if it would be true or not, is that the structuring of this organization looks remarkably like the kind of work that a certain person that Charlie Kirk got criticized for talking about was expert in. I think that's the case he's trying to make. I think he's trying to make that case that maybe, wouldn't it be interesting if either Jeffrey Epstein or a Jeffrey Epstein-like character had a hand in structuring the way this organization works, and therefore when Charlie started having troubles, because really he started doing the critical of Jeffrey Epstein even before he started doing any, letting other people talk about things about Israel. So I think that's the case he's trying to make, which I think is, I don't think he's going to be able to make that case, right? But I think that's what he's doing. But my point, which I already iterated to you, was just the other thing. That lost in the mess of all of this other chaos is just, why don't we ever have any conversations about what the fuck this is and what our politics is influenced by, right?
Right. And we do answer that, I think, conclusively on the show, because there's all these like complicated tax structures that do protect these organizations. But because Ian Carroll exists as a disinformation agent, the fact that he's trying to shove this questionable structuring off on the right is disingenuous. Because that's not where the bulk of it is happening.
So I guess I look at all of the, I mean, that wasn't the way that I was looking at this. And I see, for you know me, I'm like, both sides are fucking corrupt, and they use different styles on each side. So the point for me wasn't that he was trying to make it about, oh, this shady thing on the right. I think he was just specifically talking about this one thing. But I have no love for Ian Carroll, and I agree with you. Like, he's got this new like duckbill cap that is, you know, whatever it is. But my point is just like how far out over the skis we've gotten with all kinds of theories about everything, and never any just like what actually is Turning Point and why did it have so much power, and should something like that have the kind of power that it seems to have over politics. That's all.
Correct. But what I'm saying is, like, again, this is a giant distraction, just like USAID when PEPFAR is going totally ignored. It's like, oh, let's go over here and criticize Turning Point USA instead of criticizing the Ford Foundation.
I agree with you though that if Turning Point was the one that we started looking at it because, okay, look at this, then go, okay, Planned Parenthood, Ford Foundation, all of these things, like, why are we allowing this, right? That's but yes, I understand that if there's not some unique evil to Turning Point USA.
I don't think there's any unique evil, and there is such thing as a 501c4 tax shelter for nonprofits through which they can funnel their political opinions. That is already established. And when I'm looking, a cursory glance at their funding, I'm not seeing any of the usual disgusting billionaire fucktards that are funding all the other organizations that are doing what it seems like Ian is alleging Turning Point USA was doing.
Right. It's a problem everywhere. It's not just there. I do think probably with a lot of these organizations, they create these sort of compartmentalized types of things. And in this one, because everybody thinks of Turning Point as being one thing, and it's uniquely aimed at young people, right? There's no it's super, it's no more shady than anything else, but no young person is oh, this is a 501c3, not a 501c4, or vice versa, right? The whole thing is just, I don't even understand what we're living in.
I don't even again, I'm not tracking this particular distraction because it's not interesting to me. But I'm curious to know what Turning Point USA claims they are.
Well, he used to talk about, he would say they're a 501c3. Candace Owens says it when she talks about them. That's what they are.
But they are.
Right.
But they're it's the IRS sets up these tax loopholes. It's not like Turning Point USA is doing anything differently than these other groups are. This is what I'm saying.
So I agree with you that they're all doing some shady shit, but I think that the question is how explicitly pro-Trump Charlie Kirk was when he was supposedly running a 501c3. He wasn't making any bones about it. It wasn't like he was saying, I'm for this political idea, but not for this political party or this political candidate. He was not being nuanced with that at all. And I think that's, maybe a little bit different than maybe you don't have, I don't know. I haven't paid attention to Planned Parenthood or Ford Foundation or any of those things in a really long time. But generally you don't have one of them explicitly on stage all the time talking about who to support and who to vote for, even though it's obviously implied who they're voting for, right? I don't know.
I don't know either. Is Black Lives Matter a 501c3? Is Act Blue a 501c3?
Well, so I think that was the whole again, I didn't pay that close of attention to Black Lives Matter because that one wasn't interesting to me at all either, right? But I don't know that they were, I think Act Blue was trying to, wasn't it that Black Lives Matter was doing fundraising and people were trying to support Black Lives Matter, but somehow that money that was going to Black Lives Matter was really getting funneled over to Act Blue, who was just trying to elect Democrats. Wasn't it like that?
Correct.
Okay. So I think that's the reverse. I think that would be like the reverse of what of this other situation. But yeah, I mean, this is no different. I mean, it's a different, but like than having a bill that's ostensibly about one thing, but in it is 10 other topics that have nothing to do with what the title or the front page of the bill says. Right? Like this is like my larger point is that like what are like I mean this is for me why there's like no point in the government thing, even if I believed in the structure or whatever, is nothing is ever about what it ostensibly seems to be about.
Well, okay, I don't really know much about Charlie Kirk, Turning Point USA, but I'm on their site. It says Turning Point USA is a 501c3 nonprofit organization founded in 2012 by Charlie Kirk. The organization's mission is to identify, educate, train, and organize students to promote the principles of fiscal responsibility, free markets, and limited government. Was Turning Point USA as an organization advocating for politicians, or was it Charlie Kirk as an individual?
So it was Charlie Kirk as an individual when he was appearing at both as the founder and the star of Turning Point's events, including like the debates where kids would come up and talk to him or whatever. These are Turning Point's events, basically, promoting political parties, political candidates, and specific political sort of. I don't think ideas would be the right thing. I don't think you're not allowed to say political ideas, but like specific, I don't have the term for what I'm thinking about right now. That's the thing. I think that like him being both the founder, the star, and then also an individual known as Charlie Kirk who can have an opinion, doing all those roles interchangeably. And the fact that like he was doing his podcast from the Turning Points compound and whatever it is. And his podcast was explicitly pro-Republican and pro-Trump and all of that kind of stuff. There didn't seem to be this like delineation where, I mean, you even see this sometimes with, certain other people who are involved in certain kinds of organizations that like when they're doing one thing, they're in one studio. And when they're doing another thing, they're like in another scenario. There was none of that. All that shit was all mixed together. Mm-hmm. Right. And I, like, again, I don't actually care about any of this, right?
Right.
But it would be like when we're talking about whether the predators are concerned with a specific thing or just like more like a structural way things are put together, like there's an angle to this story that it's like, oh, wouldn't that be interesting? Like, if so much has been put into the structure of Turning Points, which is part of what it is, like that's part of one of the possible narratives. But if these structures are so important because they allow them to not just have influence in a way that they're not necessarily supposed to, but like able to like do weird, funny money things that we normally think of as only being part of like corporations or hedge fund or venture capitalist kind of thing, right? If there was that much of that much money and that much influence moving through that, which there seems to be, I mean, right? Like it is weird that like all of these heads of state and the wealthiest people on the planet care what he thinks. It's fucking.
Did they care what he thought before he was allegedly shot?
Yeah, I mean that's like the whole. Right, like basically, like there seems to be more and more evidence coming out that there was basically a war for what the talking points. And it's funny, in another video, Glenn kept calling Turning Points talking points, and I'm like, there's a beautiful truth to that, right? There was a war going on behind the scenes amongst billionaires about what the talking points of Turning Points should be.
Interesting. Okay. I mean,
I'm exhausted of this.
No, I get it. Everything you're saying could very well be valid. I just hate Ian Carroll and believe nothing. And I think if he's taking aim at something, I don't trust it. I literally trust him probably the least of all of them.
Sure. And right. And this is like, it's not because Ian Carroll says it that I thought it was an interesting thing to think about. It's just even you can create so much confusion and chaos that even people who normally think practically, like, miss an obvious one, and a broken clock could trip over the right time twice a day. And I'm sure that wherever he goes with this will be the same. Remember like 6 months ago when he was like, I have to make this video to keep everyone safe because there's blackmail on RFK and we have to make a situation where he can like come out and admit it. It's going to be another one of those. I don't have any idea that like Ian Carroll is going to bring us the truth and the answer of this story or anything like that.
For sure. But let's just be mindful and see where this goes.
Totally.
Because between that and the Wired reporter who Glenn Greenwald had on to tell us about dark money, my spidey sense is telling me that they're trying to make this a right-wing problem. Maybe I'm wrong. We'll just see where this goes.
Well, I think the left will always like to make it a right-wing problem. The right would always like to make it a left-wing problem. Like, I think that's pretty much how this rolls. But yeah, I think there's definitely a style or like an institutional template that exists in a different way on the left than it has on the right, which doesn't mean that there isn't some other style on the right that we're either not aware of or that is forming now that we haven't seen before. But I do understand your point that like this is a long-term thing that had been going on with these groups on the left, and to just like pretend like all of a sudden there's this. Yeah, I agree with you on that.
That's what I'm saying. And I'm with you. The right is just as scuzzy as the left. But as far as dark money NGOs, that is primarily a leftist thing.
But because the leftists have to maintain this idea that they're humanitarian, and the people on the right don't pretend that. Correct. And so like they're happy, like Bill Ackman and those people, they think it's wonderful the way they act. They're not good at reading the room and seeing like how embarrassing what they actually say is. The people on the left have I wouldn't even call it self-awareness, because if you were truly self-aware, you wouldn't do some of these things, but they have this idea that they understand that they should be self-aware. And so they create these groups. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Before we wrap it up, I just want to play 2 short Catherine Austin Fitzes.
Okay.
Just because they're timely and I would like to contribute something to our show that isn't just pop culture fluff.
Okay. Sounds good.
Okay. Here we go. Fair use.
Has turned out to be a Trojan horse. It's just, I don't know if you saw this. Kennedy just came out and he said his vision for everybody in America is they have a wearable, which means he's the Judas goat walking everybody into the control grid. So, I think any hope that he was playing an inside game, my hope was he was playing an inside game and sort of making compromises so he could get something done. But he and Elon Musk are having a competition for who can get the most people into the control grid the fastest. So do you know what a Judas goat is in livestock management?
Nope.
Okay. A Judas goat, you'll train a goat to walk all the sheep into the slaughterhouse. So here's the slaughterhouse. The Judas goat kind of walks in, and right at the end, he turns, and then the sheep go into the slaughterhouse. So his job is to steer people, and so I was hoping Kennedy was playing an inside game, but he's, based on what he said the other day, he's the Judas goat. And he and Musk are having a competition, I think, for making the control grid fashionable.
Yeah.
So Maha has turned out to be a Trojan.
What show is that?
Maha has turned out to be a Trojan horse.
Do you know what podcast she was being interviewed on there? I don't think I saw that one.
I don't know. Maybe it's this. Is this the show? I have no idea.
No, I think that's just like an Instagram account that clipped the show. Okay.
Okay, so there's that one. I just like it from the horse's mouth because I feel like when Catherine says it, it's got some oomph. Not that you and I didn't see this coming for quite a while. All right, last, Catherine, here we go, fair use.
Trump was put in by the bankers to get the control grid. The other team in the Uniparty wasn't moving fast enough. They couldn't get the control grid.
I knew it.
I sent you a link. We just did a new collection of all the things Trump is doing to move the control grid. He is moving very, very fast. When it comes to building...
So?
First, he's getting the Real ID implemented. very aggressively. Real ID. To do a control grid, you need a very high quality precision national ID that's interoperable with all the other IDs around the world. And he's got Kristi Noem out there pushing the Real ID like there's no tomorrow. So they're working, and it's done through the states, but the feds are pushing it. So the first thing you need is a digital ID. The second thing you need is an all digital financial system. So you got to kill cash, and you got to make everybody interact digitally. And if you look at what he's doing with taxes and Social Security, he's trying to make everybody, he's canceled pennies, but he's also canceled now. Normally I pay my taxes with paper, and now he's saying, no, you got to do everything digital. It's not this year, but next year.
Really?
So he's trying to, if you go through that list, I've got 50 different items of what he's doing. And if you look at what they're doing with the Genius Act and stablecoin, he said no CBDCs, but stablecoin. So I don't know if you've read the Genius Act, which is the new plan for stablecoins. Okay. A CBDC would be issued by the Federal Reserve. So presumably the New York Fed and the Fed member banks. Okay. Now, they are owned by their members. So Citibank, JP Morgan Chase, they own, as members, they own the New York Fed and, basically govern it. Okay. And the New York Fed is the depository for the Treasury, and the different banks work as agent to do those transactions. Okay. So now under the Genius Act, what they're saying is the guys who own the New York Fed are all going to create subsidiaries and issue stablecoin, which will be interoperable and can work with a social credit system. Now, here's the beauty of it. The New York Fed, under the law, has direct obligations to Congress, and Congress has jurisdiction over them. If you do it through the owners of the Fed, through their private subsidiaries, you're going to have some degree of freedom. So it gives you more freedom.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. So if you think this is improvement, you have another thing coming. Trump was put in by the bankers.
That was from the Dani. I that was the when she was on the Dani Jones podcast. I saw that from a little while back. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I appreciate a lot of the things that Catherine Austin Fitts says, but I also feel like she's one of these people right now who's on her greatest hits tour, right? Because now all these people, she's going back and talking about narratives that she rolled out 10, 12 years ago for all of us. And right. And so now it's like they're on the greatest hits tour and not necessarily updating their understanding of what's going on, but getting lots of, I don't know. It's hard to sometimes fault someone for that or whatever it is. As far as the Kennedy things going, I don't know. Like last week I heard that he was going to get all pharmaceutical ads off of TV.
I heard that as well.
And my first thought was, if that is true, then doesn't make any of his other shortcomings okay. But that is such a massive thing that it would count as something, right? It would count as something because that's such a big issue. But then, of course, of course I should have known that can't possibly be true. No, it isn't really that. It's just that they're going to make it financially prohibitive for that to happen. But because money's not real and they just print more for the people that they want to have more for whatever it is, there will still be ads. They have gotten a bit ridiculous. Some of the pharmaceutical ads I see on TV look like anime cartoons or anime shows that I can't even understand how they're really about a pharmaceutical. It's so weird, and I guess that's extra mind controlling or whatever. Maybe some of those that play at 4:00 in the morning like that won't be able to afford to be on anymore. But damn well the 3 or 5 main most important ones that they're always trying to mind control everybody with, that's not going anywhere.
Yeah, you very well might be right. I think what we're seeing now is such a mixed bag, maybe he will do a couple good things on the health front, in addition to what he's trying to bring in the same way that Trump is doing some good things, getting pronouns out of the military and the requirements for everyone to actually be physically fit. It's I think it's all a mixed bag.
It is all a mixed bag. But yeah, I don't know. That's the, like, it's correct though what she's saying about the wearables kind of thing, right? You can't what the fuck were you worried about a vaccine passport for if you're just gonna have like
Oh, for sure, for sure.
no
I mean,
sense,
I
yeah.
don't fault her because clearly, like the alt media, the way that like the Overton window is being expanded, it's like, okay, now they're ready to bring her on.
Right.
And why
Yes.
would she turn down the opportunity? You know, like I get it, but yeah, she's not saying anything new. It's just
Right.
feels good to hear it.
All right, let's go to the chat box and see what the kids have to say. All right, I see.
Thank you guys for your generous super chats. They mean the world. And Emily and Laura need a new car. So the more that you guys give us, the easier it's going to be on our favorite unlesbians.
Okay, I see a lot of all capital letters things, but that's just somebody who posts.
I would ignore those.
I was gonna say it's just somebody who posts everything in all capital letters.
Yeah.
So, all right, but if you guys have questions, comments, any of that stuff, everybody else put it in all capital letters. But
Yeah.
pharmaceutical ads are now on YouTube in Canada. I think we've always had pharmaceutical ads on YouTube here, haven't we?
Have we? Maybe.
I'm one of those people like AdSense marketing, like YouTube and Facebook and stuff, does not work on me at all. I have never I've never clicked on like one of those things on the side, never bought any of that stuff. I don't understand how that does work for anybody at all.
Yeah.
Right? Oh my God. You know what I did mean to talk about today? I completely forgot until right now though. So we were watching something on Prime last night, and we don't watch Prime a lot, right? We tend to watch the other services more. But Prime is one of those ones that even though you already fucking pay for it, the service, and also
you still get the commercials.
And shit from then you get the commercials.
It's the worst.
Now, I've never noticed this before. Now, when you're watching the commercials, at the end of the commercial, the button will pop up to buy now because you can buy it right then, right? So whatever, there's like the Estee Lauder Eternal Agelessness cream, push now, $85. Maybe it's been there all along and I haven't noticed it before. Laura doesn't like commercials, so she mutes them. I don't like them either, but I'm good at ignoring them. I just don't hear them, just like I don't pay attention to anything on the side. But because she muted, I'm always paying attention for when the show comes back on so I can like unmute it. And I'm like, what the fuck is that? And then I notice it on the next. I don't know if this is a new feature or if it's always been there and I just didn't notice before. But that is like a terrifying. Can you just imagine like people just sitting there? Like, remember like when people used to buy things from the infomercials in the 80s on TV, like, or whatever?
The knives.
But you had to like go to some effort, right? You had to like
pick up the phone and call.
Pick up the phone, or you had to like send a postcard with the self-returning envelope to this address or whatever. Now it's just point, click, point, click, point, click. It's fucking terrifying, dude.
I'm with you. Thank you, Jim.
You, Jim.
Super chat. We love you so much. Dina would like to know, there are knowledgeable people in economics. Who do you listen to and follow?
I mean, for years I listened to Catherine and a variety of other people. I have to tell you, like, to be honest with you, I stopped listening to anything really like specifically financial probably 8 or 10 years ago because my mind just doesn't really do that stuff. Like that isn't like what I'm here for, right? Like like obviously I need money, I work, I can't stand sitting on the computer and trying to figure out the crypto thing or the stock market thing or any of that kind of shit. I'm mostly concerned with like jobs that I can do well and be compensated fairly for them and then like try to spend my money wisely and whatever it is. So it's not interesting to me and I'm not good at it and it just steals emotional energy from things that I feel like I can do something about or that I have some potential in or whatever it is. So I don't listen generally to financial podcasts or anything like that. I used to read a lot of Zero Hedge and there's a lot of financial stuff on there, but I stopped reading that even. So you?
Yeah, I used to listen to Freakonomics back before I realized that NPR was a giant scam. I do follow Catherine, Dollar Vigilante a little bit, but I'm the same. My brain tends to tap out. Like I was tracking that Instagram guy, Coach V, for a while, but it's all just to sell his shit, like his insurance and his crypto. And so I'm like you, I'm just a little bit tapped out of that conversation.
There's almost no person out there that's giving just sort of like agnostic financial advice.
Right. There's a hook. There's something to buy. They have the fix. They have the solution.
Or even with Catherine, who I listened to Catherine religiously for years, and I still listen to some of her stuff and whatever it is, right? I definitely learned a lot of things from her. Like she doesn't have any way to help. She's got no information or advice for people who don't have a lot of money to afford. Like I remember like Laura reached out to about some of her services or about some being connected with someone that she works with that she trusts. And it's like, yeah, like you're not playing in at that level. There's nothing for you. So,
correct.
Right. So yeah, it's just not my thing. So I guess I'm
Jerusha, thank you. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Yeah, money drives all policy, so it's important to know. That's how I feel. I'm not saying it's not important to know. I spent a lot of years paying attention to it, and like it didn't really. I mean, I understand. I didn't. Before I woke up, I didn't understand about the Federal Reserve and fractional reserve banking and all of that kind of stuff. So I learned all of those things, and I've learned some basic stuff about it, but it's just not the focus of my life.
All right, we have a few things to acknowledge in the chat. One is Dina said Catherine Austin Fitts is a joke, hard pass. Tunnel Mental agrees. I don't know the reasons why, so I'm like genuinely curious to know what about her is not on the level.
So for me, I'll tell you, like for me, at a certain point, like anybody who there was a time when she was promoting Trump, right? And so like for me, anybody with the supposed knowledge and awareness that she had of things, that didn't make sense to me, right? Also for me, just personally, like I'm not conservative. I'm not a traditionalist. I'm not conventional. And so people who have those things as solutions generally don't they might say some things that are true or interesting to know, but they're that's not going towards the reality that I'm interested in. Right. Mm-hmm. And then, just so there was the Trump thing, but then again, there was the belief in RFK. Like, I don't understand how someone who has worked in the Bush administration, she claims to have been, and I haven't heard anyone say this isn't true, so I don't know. I seems to be that that's the truth, that she was targeted by people in the financial deep state and the political deep state and stuff. Why she wouldn't be suspicious of anybody who's operating in those circles and getting attention and rising to it just seemed to me it didn't make sense. It would just be kind of like, if suddenly, like I don't like commercial sounding dance music. And if suddenly I was like promoting commercial sounding dance music when like I claim to like underground techno, it's kind of like that. Like, like if you've been sort of cultivating an audience of people telling them things that like they otherwise wouldn't be able to know, but then you tell them to go do the current thing that everyone else is doing, it just doesn't make sense to me. So that was really like where I kind of got completely turned off, but for me, it was always just like not like her ideal reality and my ideal reality are probably not the same thing. And so I'm not going to put too much intention or belief into that.
Got it. Okay. So, Jerusha said, along with her very generous super chat, thank you so much.
Thank you, Jerusha. Thank you, Jim.
Wow, thanks for bringing up the big pharma commercials. I've been so dismayed and disgusted with the recent ones, literally trans people, AI, etc., making AI trans versions of famous stars. Really disgusting. Love y'all. And then we got a question from Kat. I am intuitive detective and spellbreaker. Have you seen the reverse ATM cash machines that you put in cash to get a card, or no sale for you?
I think I did. I have seen machines where you can get those like credit cards that you can buy that like they're not personalized to you. Like you can go into the checkout counter, the checkout station, and buy like a $50 Visa. I've seen something that looked like that. And then I've also seen ATMs where you can buy crypto, ATM, stuff like that. So yeah.
I haven't seen them because I don't use ATMs, so I was not hip to that.
Yeah.
All right, last call for all caps questions. I think Emily's checked out. She's deep in her phone.
I'm looking at the phone because I can't see it on here. I'm on the chat room.
Oh, okay.
Here because then my computer slows down and then I can't see it anymore. So I'm reading the.
Okay, I think we're done with questions.
Okay. Yay!
Thanks, guys. We do have a new show coming out tomorrow.
Patchwork of a Moose Boosh will be there tomorrow morning. Go check it out. Use the promo code if you haven't so far. Always lovely to spend an evening with you and with all of you.
Thanks, guys. We love you.
Bye.